Hello, and God bless you, and welcome to the month of May. This is one of my favorite times of the year because so many wonderful things take place. National Women's Health Week starts each year on Mother's Day to encourage women and girls to make their health a priority for spiritual, physical, psychological, emotional, and social well-being. During that week, I'll be doing some special health video segments on women's health in my private Facebook community. If you're not a member, you can join at RekishiaMcMillanCommunity.com. The next Get Fit 21 session kicks off on May 22nd, which also happens to be my birthday. Our theme for this month is Your Life is a Canvas. The Bible reminds us in Ephesians 2:10 that we are beautiful works of art, God's very own masterpieces. The scripture reads, "For we are His workmanship, His own masterwork, a work of art, created in Christ Jesus, reborn from above, spiritually transformed, renewed, ready to be used for good works, which God prepared for us beforehand, taking paths which He set, so that we would walk in them, living the good life which He prearranged and made ready for us." Ladies, you are the artist of your personal health journey. And as your health coach, I'm encouraging you to be intentional about rocking your world with more color. To celebrate finishing another trip around the sun, and God graciously blessing me with this awesome life that I get to live serving women like you around the world, I'm having a birthday bash giveaway. You can enter to win one of three prizes. You can have a 15-minute power health coaching session with yours truly, or a signed copy of my award-winning book, Rock Your World Naturally, 7 Divine Keys to Unlock Extraordinary Health, or Get Fit 21 merch, which includes a t-shirt and a smoothie tumbler. To enter, simply leave a review on my podcast, or if you've already left a review in the past, you can just share the show with a friend. You can take a screenshot of the review or your share and head over to my community at RekishiaMcMillanCommunity.com. Join the community and post your screenshot there and use the hashtag #BirthdayBash. This giveaway will only be open from today up until Sunday, which is May 14th, Mother's Day. So don't miss out on your chance to leave with a cool party favor for my birthday bash. On this week's podcast episode, I had the powerful conversation with Dr. Mitchel Yass on overcoming chronic pain. You may be surprised to know that the pain you're experiencing is not coming from what most doctors lead you to believe. Dr. Yass provides insight and has helped thousands of women heal from chronic pain through his proven techniques. He also provides insight from his 3 books on how you can live a pain-free life. Let's get into it. When it comes to women's health, there's an overwhelming amount of information out there, and honestly, it can be quite confusing. Diets, fads, trends, which one is right? What if I told you the answers to optimal health can be found in one of the most ancient medical books ever written, the Bible? If you're ready to take the guesswork out of living a healthier life, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Rock Your World Naturally show. I'm Rekishia McMillan, honorably retired Air Force veteran, certified health coach, and award-winning author. After years of trying to recover my health the world's way, I was still sick, depressed, and had no energy. Finally, I surrendered to God, and He showed me in the Bible how to recover my health, and it rocked my world naturally. My calling is to help women who are struggling and burnout to have more energy and lose weight by using God's prescription for physical, mental, and spiritual health. If you're ready to experience extraordinary health, grab your favorite herbal tea or power smoothie and let's get ready to rock your world naturally. Ladies, did you know that there is one missing link that most doctors and medical care providers overlook that is essential to recovering your health? That missing link is toxic overload. Prior to becoming a health coach, I went through years of suffering from a number of health conditions because my body was overflowing with toxins. Many women are unaware that if the body is not cleansed on a regular basis, it gets overloaded by toxins. And our detox organs, which include the liver, kidneys, lung, gut, and skin, which we count on for maintaining our health, get knocked out of balance. When this happens, we often experience significant symptoms that occur from the body trying to correct itself. Here are some signs that your body needs to detox. You have hard to lose belly fat, brain fog, especially after COVID-19, chronic fatigue, constipation, sugar cravings, bloated stomach, skin problems, gas, excessive cellulite, gallbladder problems, body aches and joint pain, migraine headaches, foul breath and body odor, and insomnia or sleeping problems. Because of our growing exposure to toxins and unhealthy lifestyle habits, it's more important than ever to pay attention to what our bodies are telling us. If you're experiencing any of these symptoms, you don't want to miss out on being a part of my upcoming monthly cleanse group. The cleanse program comes with a powerful purifying system to neutralize and dislodge toxins, waste, and parasites and remove them from the body. Visit my website at rekishiamcmillan.com and message me for details on how you can cleanse your body naturally. Thank you so much to all of those that are listening in to the Rock Your World Naturally show today. I'm looking very forward to our topic of discussion, which will center around pain management. And so our guest today, Dr. Mitchel Yass, is going to provide some solutions and some things that we've probably never heard before that are going to enlighten and move us into better health with our pain management. So, Dr. Yass, thank you so much for being my special guest on the show today.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to enlightening your audience to recognize that the mere idea that someone is getting pain management is completely ludicrous and should never have gone down this path this far.
Dr. Yass, something that I saw recently was a statistic that showed that 50 million Americans are living with chronic pain every day. Is that an accurate statistic or is it higher? What are your thoughts around that number?
So in 2013, the National Institute of Medicine, part of the National Institute of Health, puts out a position paper on chronic pain indicating that roughly 130 million Americans suffer with chronic pain, and that the cost to the United States is roughly $635 billion. This goes back in 2013. Here's the punchline. Here's the joke of the whole thing, is the fact that they say that pain is no longer the result of a tissue in distress and a signal being elicited by that tissue to create conscious awareness of the distress of that tissue so an intervention can be provided to resolve the distress of the tissue. No. They say that pain is simply arbitrary signals being shot off from the brain with no reason whatsoever. Therefore, without a cause, there is nothing to treat, and therefore the only thing that can be done for the person in their mind is to get either hypnosis or, here it comes, pain management.
So, Dr. Yass, with this information that you are sharing, how did we get here? How did we get here, Dr. Yass?
Great question. So let's try to wrap our heads around the chronic pain epidemic, which has now gone on for roughly 40 years. and I will kind of describe how it started and how it escalated and how now it's basically led to people considering that chronic pain and chronic illness are synonymous, which is a complete lie. So basically, there has never been chronic pain in the history of mankind. You could go back and look at the annals of medical history. Never existed. Come the mid to late 1980s, and what develops is technology, automation, computers, cell phones. And what you start to see is a transitioning in how people live their lives, whether occupationally, recreationally. It doesn't really matter. What you start to see is things are being done less manually than they were, and now everything is being done computer-based. So even the most popular job in the world now is an IT job, information technology, a job where you sit from 8 to 10 hours a day doing stuff on the computer. I mean, you could go back and look at the fact that if I wanted to get money out of the bank, there was a teller, a person that would actually have to sit there and hand out money and things like that. Well, now there's the ATM. And you could see that. I used to work, I remember this clearly when I was a teenager. I worked in a warehouse and I would pull electrical parts at a supplier. I would have to get on ladders. I would have to pick the parts, and then I would have to put them in a box and wrap the box and send them out. How do you think Amazon works? A 1 billion square foot facility. It's all robots. Robots are getting all this. And a guy sits at a computer and looks at the robots and makes sure they're doing well. So what you saw was prior to the 1980s, the average person who even remotely was affected by chronic pain was the retired individual. Why the retired individual? Because they went from being active to sitting on the porch and just rocking in their rocking chair. When they then decided to do activity, their muscles weren't strong enough, so they strained, and it elicited pain. They were falsely told it was something called rheumatism. That was the count. Arthritis, rheumatism, right? But it was actually muscular. Now we have the mid to late 1980s, and the same thing that happened to those retired people now begins to happen from people from their 20s to their 90s. Everybody's starting to suffer from chronic pain. You're looking at that computer, that phone, you're starting to get neck pain in your teens and 20s, right? You're sitting in lecture halls. All this stuff is going on. And as a result of that, people from the 20s to the 90s. So now you have this massive, massive level of people suffering from pain that the medical system has to address. What was the basis by which, as this situation began to occur, what was the basis by which the diagnostic was derived from? Oh, technology gave us that answer as well, the MRI. So the MRI starts finding herniated discs, arthritis, meniscal tears, labral tears, stenosis, pinched nerves, structural variations. Muscular causes cannot show up on MRIs. So let's say you bend down to pick up a pencil or something, and all of a sudden your back went out. And clearly you would acknowledge it was probably a pulled muscle. You go for an MRI, that pulled muscle doesn't show up. What will show up is a degenerative a degenerative herniated disc that has been there for 10 to 20 years, but it is only identified for the first time while you're having pain because a muscle strained. But since the muscle cannot be identified, the cause of the pain is then asserted to be the identified herniated disc. So they treat the herniated disc from here to eternity, never recognizing that you're still trying to bend down, still trying to do things. So you continue to strain your lower back muscle. And as a result, you end up with chronic pain that had existed for more than 3 to 6 months. And as long as this process continues, as long as you seek care from the global medical establishment who has put all their money on the primary mechanism for diagnosing through the use of the MRI, you cannot find muscular causes. You simply are finding degenerative changes in the body, which have existed, whether you have blonde hair, whether you're 6 foot, whether you have pain, whether you don't have pain. The identification of it should not be shocking to somebody. But since they are found for the first time at the time of pain, they are asserted to be the cause of the pain. And now that this is 40 years in, this is now perceived to be the standard of care, which is why You have 130 million Americans and roughly 1 billion people worldwide suffering from chronic pain.
Mhm. Just listening to you just share this information, Dr. Yass, is so alarming. And when you correlate this to technology, it just makes so much sense, Dr. Yass, that our lifestyle has been totally impacted by technology and it's caused a decline in our health.
It's irrefutable. Here's the funny part. So the medical system is willing to acknowledge that type 2 diabetes, obesity, and cardiovascular disease are 100% the result of this change in lifestyle. These diseases never existed prior to this period of time. Type 2, not type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and cardiovascular disease all occurred at the same time. And there is a full recognition that these are lifestyle change diseases. They are not genetically based diseases. So it's so amazing because with those, well, that's okay. I'm willing to admit that because guess what? I could give you medication out the yin yang for the rest of your life. So you're still a patient of the medical system. Right? But if I was to acknowledge this as pain as a lifestyle change and it's muscular based, well, who can get someone stronger? Only themselves. You kind of don't need the medical system anymore.
And even when I think about, Dr. Yass, as you're just sharing this information, that COVID-19, there are so many people that are working remotely now. They're working from home. And one of the things that I hear a lot, even as a health coach, that people are in so much pain.
Yes.
And so if someone were to come to you, Dr. Yass, and they're saying, you know what, I'm in pain, I need some type of relief, what are some recommendations or what are some approaches that people can take to start making a course correction?
So to me, I am a logician. I was taught logical thinking as a child. This just happened to be the area of expertise where I applied my logic. So let's say that you're the type of person that has knee pain every time they go up and down stairs. Every time you go up and down stairs, you have pain. And yet, if you sit down and relax, the pain goes away. How can you not recognize that clearly you have a muscular deficit that is responsible for your pain when you're describing the pain is associated with an activity? Now, here's the concept. Let me give you the example. So when you're going up and down stairs, let's say that the pain that you get surrounds your kneecap, right? So you appear to have a joint located pain. What you don't recognize is the position of the kneecap in the joint is based on the force applied to it by the quadricep muscle, the front thigh muscle. So let's say that you're the type of person who just sits all day and when they get up, well, they walk around, whatever. You have a tendency to create a natural imbalance because everything is done in front of us where our quadricep muscle is stronger than our hamstring muscle, the posterior thigh muscle. Well, if that imbalance develops enough, it will lead to the quadricep shortening. So when you bend your knee, let's say to walk up and down stairs, instead of your kneecap gliding through the joint, it is excessively compressed through the joint. That is why a muscular cause can cause pain at a joint. Now, if that person goes to the medical system, guess what's going to happen? They're going to get an x-ray. They're going to find arthritis. They're going to say, since arthritis was found at the time of the pain, it must be the cause of the pain. But let's say this person's pain began 2 weeks ago. Are you going to stand there and tell me that arthritis developed 2 weeks ago, but if I checked that x-ray 2 weeks and a day ago, there wasn't the arthritis? Arthritis is a slow degenerative process that takes years, if not decades, to develop. So what happens is the person gets misdiagnosed with the diagnosis of arthritis, not recognizing that if that x-ray had been taken before the pain, even a year before, that same arthritis would have been seen. So if the arthritis existed before the pain, how could it be the cause of the pain? It's
Wow.
impossible. So the first thing I would say to any person on this planet, if you can associate your pain with activity, I think you need to stop right there and begin to think about the fact that your problem is probably muscular. And now you have to go on and start to try to establish what muscles are responsible for your pain. That is first and foremost. That would basically stop every single person who is being told that arthritis, a herniated disc, a pinched nerve, a meniscal tear, or any of these structures that are found on MRIs are the cause of their pain. That becomes impossible because think about this. Let's say that you were told the cause was a meniscal tear. You have pain going up and down stairs, but when you sit, it goes away. Are you going to try to imply that the meniscal tear exists walking down up and down stairs, but when I sit down, the meniscal tear disappeared? Because I don't have pain, remember? So it's a magical meniscal tear. It comes and goes. How perverse could that be?
Wow. This is just incredible information that you're sharing. And so the majority of the population has been misdiagnosed, Dr. Yass, and what we're thinking is, a degenerative disease is not really that, but has more to do with the muscular aspect of our health.
It's basically irrefutable. If these degenerative processes were the cause of pain, you must understand, as a logician, I don't just accept one aspect of anything. When I'm trying to examine an issue, I take it from all sides. So I do research out the yin yang. I mean, just crazy amounts. What if I told you postmortem studies of the 1950s showed that 40% of the American population had herniated discs? I don't understand. Where was the outcry? Show me in the annals of medical history in the 1950s this massive rise in people seeking care for chronic pain. Where was that? It doesn't exist. So I don't understand why. Because herniated discs don't cause pain.
Wow.
Herniated disc material is made of fibrocartilage, just as the meniscus in the knee and the labrum in the shoulder and the hip. They're all made of fibrocartilage. Fibrocartilage has no pain receptors. They can't elicit pain. That's just a fact.
Wow. And so for those who are listening, Dr. Yass, and they're just thinking about their own, personal health, they may have some pain going on. You've written a number of books that focus on helping individuals to overcome pain. Can you share a little bit about those books so that our listeners can, whether you're writing this down as you're listening to it, listen to the replay, this is vital information that is going to be transformational to your health.
So I've written 3 books: Overpower Pain, The Pain Cure RX, and the Yass Method for Pain-Free Movement. And to me, the most significant book is the Pain Cure RX. And the reason is because I kind of go to the most significant joints that people have pain in: the neck, the mid-back, lower back, gluteal region, shoulder, hip, and knee. And I actually provide the individual the understanding of how to perform the actual testing mechanisms that I use, the physical tests that I use to determine if, in fact, the cause of pain at those joints is muscular, and if it is muscular, which particular muscles are responsible for the pain, and then provide the series of exercises that you can use to resolve it. So it's literally a handbook for that person to be able to diagnose and treat pain, again, at the neck, the mid-back, lower back, gluteal region, shoulder, hip, and knee. Now, if the person's not capable of doing that, they don't feel that they're comfortable or confident with it, well, I have a facility in Jacksonville, Florida, but I also do Zoom sessions. In fact, I have one coming tomorrow for a lady that's somewhere in the realm of Spain and Portugal. So I do this for people all over the world. And the sessions are designed for me to do the same thing. I'm going to kind of guide you along. I'm going to show you how I do this. And if it's muscular, I'm going to demonstrate the exercises, and then I'm going to have you perform them under my supervision. The sessions are videotaped, and you get that, and that's what you then use to help make sure you're doing everything accurately. So certainly you have that ability. And by the way, let me make this point extremely clear. I need people to start thinking for themselves and protect themselves. So you're going for treatment for pain. You're a year or 2 years into treatment. At what point do you say to yourself, you know what? I'm just kind of getting the feeling that this individual doesn't know what tissue's in distress and is addressing the appropriate tissue, resolving the distress of it so it no longer has to elicit the emergency signal of pain. At what point do you begin to lose confidence in that person who's treating you? And I'm not saying this maliciously. I'm not saying they're a bad person, they're an evil person. I'm sure they're lovely people, but their education and training is not enough to properly get the diagnosis and treatment you need so that you could end your pain. If you're the one in pain, it's your responsibility to look at what's happening to you. And if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't seem right, then you have to take the responsibility to say, nice person, thank you, but it's not working. And so I think I need to go in another direction. So I think that's a critical thing to understand. Don't get treatment for months and years. It doesn't make any sense. I deal strictly in muscular causes, which accounts for 98% of all causes of pain. That's what I've determined over 30 years, treating 15,000, 16,000 people. And I'm telling you, I get people better in weeks. Nobody uses my method, and it takes months or years. Never happens. It's weeks. If you had a meniscal tear or a herniated disc and they're telling you you're getting surgery to fix that, shouldn't you be better in the next week or two? Shouldn't there be an immediate? They just took away the thing that they said was causing your pain. So shouldn't there be like an almost immediate resolution? What is this nonsense of you're going a year, 2, and 5 years out, and they're still saying, well, it's still the same thing. What does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything.
And with the things that you're sharing, it's about getting to the root cause of what's going on in the physical body, which your methods do, Dr. Yass, getting to the root cause to helping people to live and be pain-free, whereas the other methods, as you shared, it's just this ongoing cycle that's never ending to where people really never get out of that pain cycle.
So I want to make another point about this. You've gone to an orthopedic surgeon, you've gone to a spinal surgeon, neurologist, whoever, and they treated you, you're still in pain, and all of a sudden, you are directed to pain management, or you're offered an epidural nerve block, or you're offered a cortisone shot, or you're offered radio frequency ablation, which is the cauterizing of nerves, which purely sounds medieval. Or you're suggested that you get opioids or antidepressants or any of that type of stuff. You had better make sure you understand that this is the person, that practitioner's attempt to raise the white flag. What they're saying to you is, I give up in my attempt to understand what tissue is in distress, eliciting your pain, and at best going forward, I can do no more than attempt to mask your brain's awareness of the pain. So I will try to diminish your awareness of it while, in fact, that tissue remains in distress and continues to elicit that pain signal. You had better understand that that is a basic life sentence because you're never getting, as you described, to the root cause, the tissue in distress. So please understand, that's what that represents.
And so, with this work that you're doing, Dr. Yass, and, our current medical care system. Did you always start out as someone who addressed the root cause of the pain, or how is it that your perspective is so different than most who are out there with conventional medicine, Dr. Yass?
Okay, so here's what you have to understand, which makes me different from everybody else. And it has nothing to do with your training or education. It has to do with the way people think. And the average person, most people, there are two parts to the brain, the thinking brain and the acting brain. The thinking brain takes all its information from the past and the future. The acting brain is actually taking its information from the now, literally right in the moment. Those that you are seeking care from, the vast majority of them live in their thinking brain. So what that is saying is you are standing in front of them and you have symptoms. Their thinking brain only exists from their education and training in their past. So if they are educated to say, oh, you have knee pain or back pain or shoulder, okay, we're going to get an MRI. We're going to find a structural abnormality. And whatever that says the structural abnormality is, we're going to treat that. You must understand, they're not hearing you. They don't hear you. They're not listening. They know nothing about what you're talking about. And this might sound cruel and terrible, but it is a fact. And I'll give you an example of this. I just started a guy who for 4.5 years had pain from the butt, the midline of his butt, down the back of his thigh to the outside of his knee. 4.5 years. Goes back, gets an MRI. He was told that was from a herniated disc in his back. He is treated for that for 4.5 years. Multiple neurologists, physical therapists, all these other people. Epidural nerve blocks, nothing works. Through his wife seeing something about me, he comes to see me. The very thing I said to him, the first thing I say to everybody, which I've been saying for 30 years is, can you please point to where your pain is? That is the representation of a symptom. A symptom is real time. A picture could be showing something that's existed 30 years ago. He points to it, and he points from his butt down the lateral aspect of the back of his thigh, and I say, you just pointed to your hamstring. And I say, you can't miss it. You pointed to the beginning of the hamstring and the back of the hamstring. So clearly, you strained your hamstring. So we just have to understand why you strained your hamstring. And it turns out that the hip muscle on the opposite side had strained, so it forced him to weight bear excessively on the side he had a symptom. That caused his quadricep to strain. And when the front thigh muscle strained, it allowed the hamstring to shorten. When it shortened, if he ever tried to lengthen out his leg to put it in front of him, it was painful. And it kept that hamstring shortened. So all I did was strengthen some muscles on the left side, strengthen the right quadricep, and in 2 treatments, his pain has gone from an 8 to 9 to a 2.
Wow.
And this guy is flipping out angry. He is furious. And he starts going on a rampage about the fact for 4.5 years, he has gone to people. Not one of them ever listened to a word he said. He could tell when he was in there, they knew what they were going to do way before he even began to talk. And that was the difference. So when I went to medical school 30 years ago in my last affiliation as a student, I now had to have people in front of me, and I believe God asked me to do this. I was enlightened at the time. And the very first question I asked was, can you point to where your pain was? And it became instantly evidence that where people were complaining of their pain was not where the pain should be. If an MRI identified structural abnormality like a herniated disc or stenosis or a meniscal tear was to cause pain. So if the pain isn't where it should be, where that structural variation should cause pain, then that structural variation can't be the cause of the pain. And I went on the process of interpreting symptoms, and that's when I began to recognize that the cause in more than 98% of cases is muscular.
Wow. And just that simple question right there that you ask your patients, Dr. Yask, you point to or show me where the pain is very it connects so much with the patient because sometimes, in the medical care system, people were treated like numbers. There's no listening, there's no attentiveness to what's going on in the physical body of the person.
So again, and I mean, this might sound to the average person like, wow, this is really cruel. And I mean, how could you be saying this? I've dealt with 15,000, 16,000 people over 30 years. I guarantee you, every one of your listeners who has been in pain has had this exact experience. They're in with the practitioner, regardless of their specialty, and they feel like that person's not even listening to them. They're not even paying attention to them. And you must understand, it is not personal. It is that practitioner lives in their thinking brain. Their thinking brain only gets its information from the past to the future, and therefore all they're depending on is their education and training, and you have nothing to do with that equation. And what makes me me has nothing to do with my education or training. It was the enlightened way of thinking that allowed me to be in the moment that said symptoms are real. Symptoms are representative of the tissue in distress. Interpreting the symptoms will lead me to understand what structure or what tissue is creating them. And it was that then allowed me to understand, beyond the pain, the person's having altered posture, altered movement patterns. I could find knots in muscles. There were flexibility deficit, strength. So there was a lot of corroborating evidence to show me it was muscular. And then I was able to strengthen their muscles. And again, people are getting better in a treatment or two. That's how I knew I was right.
Wow. Wow. And also, too, Dr. Gass, with you connecting with your patients on the level that you do, something that I read that you shared, that you said that you see the whole person as physical, emotional, and spiritual. And I think sometimes within our healthcare system, there's not a holistic approach to treating the person. So, can you talk a little bit about how you incorporate that holistic or that whole person approach in the work that you do?
Sure, absolutely. So there is a false thing that's been created since 2013 because of this idea that the government and the medical system is trying to convince people that these signals, these pain signals, are just shooting off arbitrarily, right? That it's in their head and the brain is creating all these other things. And basically what has begun to develop is a mindset that the pain creates emotional distress. And you can't resolve the pain without resolving the distress, the emotional distress that's connected. In fact, I had my book, The Pain Cure RX, was actually reviewed by the British Pain Society. And they went on to say, well, he seems to point out a lot of accurate information about the inappropriate use of the MRI. And yes, in fact, it's been shown that there is no or limited to no connection between structural variations and the cause of pain. But he was inappropriate in calling his book The Pain Cure RX Treatment because he doesn't discuss the emotional attachment and the way to address the emotional attachment to the pain. That is ridiculous. Here's how you know that. Remember, I'm a logician. I'm going to give you logic. I need somebody to show me the neurological pathway from pain receptors, let's say in your skin, your muscle, anywhere else, to the emotional aspect of the brain. Can someone show me the neurological pathway? Is there a netted out indication that there are connections from pain receptors to the neurological pathway? To the emotional portion of the brain? The answer is no. You'd be insane to think that. Imagine if you stubbed your toe. Every time you stubbed your toe, you're going to end up in a fetal position crying for your mommy, right? How could you exist in life like that? Clearly, that's not true. Pain receptors run to the pain aspect of the brain, right? So there's no possible way the pain is what's creating the emotional distress. Here's your answer. It's the inability to resolve the pain. That's what's leading to anxiety, frustration, hopelessness. And I have treated hundreds of people who were suicidal. That's where the problem lies. So you have to understand that once the pain continues to go on, it is not the pain, it is the sense of losing your identity, your sense of the future, your sense that tomorrow I might be able to wake up without this and have the life I choose. Those are emotional and spiritual scars that develop. So let's say you have back pain and you can't walk for a quarter of a mile. I take away the physical back pain. Do you understand that that person is never going to walk beyond that quarter of a mile? You understand they won't take even that chance because they're so fearful that's going to come because of the emotional and spiritual distress they've gone through walking beyond the quarter of a mile? So I need to address that. I talk to the person. I make them understand that there was a connection between the pain and the inability to do that. The tissue in distress causing that pain has now been resolved. So now you have to begin to understand that the stress associated with it should be reduced because you've addressed the cause of the pain that was occurring in attempting to walk the quarter of a mile. And you don't understand. I might actually go outside and walk with them a 10th of a mile, and then a 20th of a mile, and then finally a quarter of a mile. And I will be with them along this path, giving them reassurance on the spiritual and emotional end until they begin to see that they can have confidence in their future again. That person will never have their life. And I have had innumerable people who were crippled by their pain. Their lives had ended. And I spent months with them, not only resolving their pain, but talking through with them their ability to slowly expand their ability to do activities until they finally gained confidence that the pain was no longer going to come again.
Wow. And just with everything that you're sharing, Dr. Yass, you are passionate about the work that you do. What is the most, enjoyable or important part of the work that you do?
So, and this gets a bit maybe odd for some people, but I believe I was chosen for this. If you look at my entire life's body, from a child to issues with self-esteem, to eventually taking a high school physics course and applying it to weightlifting, which allowed me to put on 40 pounds and subsequently 60 pounds of muscle. That happened to happen right after I had a job as a project manager in construction, became disillusioned with it, found this thing called physical therapy, then had physical therapy within the first couple of weeks, recognizing the system is broken, recognizing that I needed to go on my own path, then finding that the most causes are muscular, having taught myself that exercise, allowing me to go through this process. And now here later, treating 15,000 people over 30 years, you must understand, I have been drawn along this path. I didn't ask to do this. When I graduated physical therapy, if you said, where do you see yourself in 10 years? It was having 1 to 2 facilities under my belt and being married with a wife and kid. That was my life. I didn't have any understanding of where I was going. Never thought I'd write a book. I've written 3. I've done a PBS special. I write for International Magazine. I write for Bottom Line Health, the largest subscription newsletter in the United States. All of this has been because I was drawn along through this process, and forever I would question, why would you ask me to do this? Why would you? There was a lot dealing with suicidal people stressed me. All the things associated with this put huge emotional stress on me, and eventually it took my marriage away, and it took like a decade away from my child. And because I was consumed, and I thought God was asking me to do this, and I would say, why would you do this to me? Why would you do this to me? Why would you give me this knowledge and not give me grandeur and joy from this thing? And then finally, 4 years ago, I found enlightenment, the actual enlightenment that freed me of ego and any other sense of having to ask questions. And it finally came to me to say, it doesn't matter why. All I know is I have this gift, this ability to use uniqueness, and people have the right to experience it. And my responsibility is nothing more than act as a conduit from the power that gave me this knowledge and simply provide it. And that's how I see myself. So I am simply a conduit. I get nothing more from this than the satisfaction of knowing that I am the one that was chosen to do this. And I will continue to do this 40, 50 more years, whatever period of time I'm alive. And I hope that more and more people get awareness of this, the opportunity to utilize it. And we are prepared to expand this until the globe has it as the opportunity, as the first line of addressing pain, not as the last resort.
And so for those that are listening, Dr. Yass, who are just thinking about their own personal situation and they're engaged with the information that you're sharing, how can they connect with you? Where can they find you, your books, to help them be free from this pain?
So if someone feels compelled to want to contact me by email, you could do so at Dr. Mitch at mitchellyass.com. That's DRMITCH at my name, MITCHELLYASS.com. I want everyone to understand, although if you Googled me, it looks like, I treat people from all over the world. This is my responsibility. I'm a servant to a higher power. I answer every single email that's ever sent to me. Any call that comes through to me, I answer every single one of them. It is my responsibility. It doesn't matter how busy I get. I will always do this. It is my responsibility. So certainly by email, you can do it. I have a website, livewithoutpains.com. It's plural, livewithoutpains.com. There's a call us button. You can do that. If someone decided they want to schedule a Zoom session, or if you happen to be in the Jacksonville area, Jacksonville, Florida, or can get here, you can schedule an in-person session. So that's another way to reach me. I always like people to understand, to me, the best way to understand the Yass method is go to my YouTube channel, which is Dr. Mitchell Yass. I have almost 300 videos now here, and they are all, it's obviously free, and it is all application-based. I am teaching you as if this is a course on what is, pick a body part, and I assure you, I have done a video or multiple videos about that area. And so you have the opportunity to even learn through that mechanism. But to me, the easiest way to get through me is by email or by my website, livewithoutpains.com.
And Dr. Yass, are there any parting words that you want to share with our listeners as we close out the show today?
Sure. To me, the number one thing, and I talk about this all the time because I've dealt with hundreds of people like this. If you are in chronic pain, you're suffering from chronic pain, and you believe that there isn't an answer and that suicide is your final answer, please think twice about that. I promise you, and I've always believed this, there is an answer to every question. You just haven't gone down the right corridor, the right road, the right pathway. There is an answer. Never think that giving up is the answer. Pain is an indication of a tissue in distress. You must understand it doesn't matter whether you've had it for a day or 40 years. It still represents a tissue that has not been identified. That's all it means. When the proper tissue is identified and the distress of that tissue is resolved, you will be without pain. You just probably are still in pain because you haven't found the appropriate person who can diagnose that for you. So for God's sakes, never see suicide as your final endpoint. Keep looking, keep searching. The answer is out there.
Dr. Yass, this has been a phenomenal show. You have been a phenomenal guest today. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing to provide an alternative to let individuals know that they can live a life without pain. So thank you so much for being my special guest on the show today.
Thank you, Rekishia. Thank you so much for having me and giving me the chance to spread both the method and the message that, as you said, you can live a pain-free, fully functional life.
God bless you, Dr. Yass.
Thank you.
I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I pray that it blessed and challenged you to move towards living the abundant life that God has for you. If so, would you stop right now to share this episode with someone who's been praying to improve their health spiritually, physically, or emotionally? I would love it if you could take 30 seconds to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. This is the only way that I know that you're liking the show. Also, it rocks my world to hear from you. Lastly, come on over to my free community, RekishiaMcMillanCommunity.com, to grab your free gifts. I have everything you need to know about working with me, taking my courses, or connecting. Also, head over to RekishiaMcMillan.com to explore my health products and sign up for free complimentary health coaching. My prayer for you will always be 3 John 2. Beloved, I wish above all things that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. I'll see you in a few days. God bless.